welcome to day 9 of Vlogmas. And today, as you might be able to tell from the title and the thumbnail and all of that, I am running through all of the books that I have DNF'd this year. I'm not going to go into like huge amount of reasons on all of them. I'm going to try not to go into any like ranting, but you know, we're just going to go through the books that just didn't work for me. Just because they didn't work for me doesn't mean that they're not going to work for you. These books might be your favorite book, and if they are, I love that for you. They just didn't work for me. Potentially wrong book, wrong time. Maybe it's just wrong book. Anyway, let's run through them. These are in order that I read them, so there's no sort of like favoritism in here. So the first book that I DNF'd this year was Just This Once by Rosalind James. This is a rugby romance. Now, I love rugby. It is one of my favourite. It's probably the only sport, actually, that I watch. And this one is set in New Zealand, and it follows an American woman who travels to New Zealand and ends up meeting this rugby player who plays for the All Blacks. And now everything about that sounds like I should love it, but I just didn't. It just didn't work. I don't really know why, but it just didn't work for me. I don't remember liking the characters particularly. Yeah, it just didn't work. Next up, I DNF'd Perfume by Patrick Susskind. I had read this book before many years ago, and I just didn't like it this time. I got maybe 100 pages in and I was like, I'm just kind of getting the ick from everything, so it's just not working for me. I can understand why people enjoy it, and like I said, I have read this book before in its entirety, so I do get it, but for me, whether it was just, you know, at that time or whatever, it just wasn't working. And then we have got A Crown of Swords by Robert Jordan. This is book 7 in the Wheel of Time series, and this is where I noped out. I had been enjoying the Wheel of Time up to this point. Like, all of the books had got sort of 3 or 4 stars. This one, I think I was slogging through it. This is the start of the infamous slog, but I think I was sort of like trying to get through it. I think I was reading it for about 6 weeks, and I'd got to about the page 500 mark. This book is like, I don't know, 800-900 pages. So I was just at about halfway, and I was like, I just can't carry on with this. I'm not enjoying it. And because I wasn't enjoying it, it was actually impacting my enjoyment of other books as well, which I think is why I DNF'd. So like, I DNF'd 3 books in January. This was the 3rd. And I think part of the reason that I was DNFing the other books or given lower ratings to other books in January was because I was struggling so much with Wheel of Time at this point. So she gone. I then didn't DNF anything in February. Had a decent month. In March, I DNF'd Wild by Amy Jeffs. This book sounded interesting when I was at an author talk where the author was talking about it. And it takes old English myths and legends from, I think, from the Exeter book about kind of like wild parts of Britain and rewrites them, or like retells those stories in modern language. And I got through, I think I read 2 of the 6, and I was like, I'm not really getting anything out of this. Because you'd have the story, which would be maybe like 3 pages, and then you'd have maybe 15 pages of the author explaining why the story was, why she wrote the story like the way that she wrote the story. Yeah, it would have been interesting, but I just wanted something that was like fun fiction rather than a essay that I'm studying. So I DNF'd. Then in April, I DNF'd A Feather So Black by Lyra Celine. This was a fairy loot book, and I think I got about 100 pages into it, and I was bored out of my mind. We followed a character who, our 2 main characters would once a month go to this like magical fairyland where they were trying to save another person who'd been there for years, and she was a swan. but like one night a year she turned back into human. And all that happened in the book, all that happened in the like 100 pages that I read was we went to the magical fairyland and then we had to leave again, and then we just sat around for 29 days. And then we went to the magical fairyland and then we had to leave again. So then we sat around for another 29 days until, you know, we hit the 30th day, because then we could go to the magical fairyland. And I was like, I can't. Nothing is happening. I just could not. So I DNF'd. Then we've got Waking Gods by Sylvain Neveu. This was a massive disappointment to me. I really enjoyed Sleeping Giants, and I was kind of hoping that I would enjoy the rest of the series. With hindsight, I possibly should have just bought the audiobook, because I was reading it with my eyeballs and I just wasn't really getting it. It'd been a couple of years since I'd read Sleeping Giants, but I just wasn't intrigued. I wasn't excited. So the series is gone. Also, everything I've heard is that book 3 is kind of crap. So I was like, oh, let's nope out now. In May, I DNF'd A Marvelous Light by Freya Marske. This one again was very sad and very disappointing, because I was expecting to love this book, or at least enjoy this book. I got about 150 pages in and I was like, I'm just not vibing with the writing style. I'm not vibing with the setting. I'm not vibing with the magic. I am going to give it another go, because I do think that this was a me issue, not a book issue. But yeah, I was just not vibing. Then we've got 2 books that I DNF'd in June, which was Life, the Universe and Everything by Douglas Adams. So this is book 3 in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. I'd read book 1 a while ago. I read book 2 and I was like, yes, it's fine. And then book 3 and I was like, I cannot. Book 3 has gone like completely wild. And at the start of book 3, our main characters, Ford and Arthur, whatever the main characters are called, they're in the Stone Age with a bunch of like advertisers and marketers and secretaries, and I was like, I don't entirely know how we got here, and B, I don't care at all about how we got here. So even though the book is like 100 pages long, I was like, I can't, nope, bye. DNF the series. Then I also in June DNF'd Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. Again, this is probably a me issue, not a book issue. I was expecting it to be a kind of new adult romance. I was expecting it to be kind of like To All the Boys I Loved Before, actually more like, say, Exo Kitty or Never Have I Ever, if you've seen those shows on Netflix, but with college age students, you know, like fun, exciting, a little bit of kind of love triangles, but romancy. Turns out it's not. Turns out it's a multi-generational kind of more literary story, and I was like, I'm not feeling this. I am not feeling this. And the writing was really, really small on the page, and the book was really long. So I was like, I'm really not feeling this. In August, I DNF'd 2 books again. I DNF'd You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. This one, again, kind of hurts because my friend Zoo, like, literally almost bullied me into reading this book. I've heard so many fantastic things about this book, but I didn't like the writing. It was too kind of flowery and purpley prosy. I felt like the plot was going in a direction I didn't like. I decided to DNF, and then I read like the end of the book and I was like, oh yeah, no, the plot did go in the direction that I thought it was going to. I DNF'd at like 50 pages. And also the fact that at 50 pages, I knew where the end of the book was going. No. Yeah, it just didn't do it for me. And I also, in August, DNF'd The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lind, I think. Yeah, K.A. Lind. This one was due to the writing. So first of all, I was fairly bored throughout. I DNF'd it at like about page 250. I was fairly bored throughout, but I was still able to like continue, and I would have continued on if I'd stayed at that, you know, I would have continued on and it would have been like a 3.5, you know. It wasn't gripping me, but it wasn't offending me. Then we got to a sex scene and there was a line, he nipped at the nipple, and I was like, no, why would you, why, first of all, why are you using the word nipped and nipple in the same sentence? Let's mix up our vocabulary here. And why is it the nipple? Why is it like this kind of floating unowned nipple? Like, I felt it would have been better if it had been he nipped at her nipple, or, you know, he did anything other than nipped at her nipples. And that just really annoyed me, and I got really fixated on that one sentence. As you can probably still tell, I read this book in August and I'm still fixated on this one sentence. Yeah, it really annoyed me. I got completely fixated on it. I did read another chapter after that, and then I was like, nothing is happening and I cannot anymore with this book, so I DNF'd. Yes, it's a very petty reason to DNF a book. No, I don't care. In September, I DNF'd The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. This book was kind of semi-intriguing me, but I just wasn't gravitating towards it. I wasn't picking it up. And so I decided just to cut my losses. I was like, even if I do finish it, it's not going to be a groundbreaking book, so we'll get rid. And I also DNF'd The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. This one, similarly to A Marvellous Light, is a soft DNF. I do fully intend to try it again next year. I think it was me, not the book, because everything about The Foxglove King I should like. And I think the reason I wasn't gelling with it is, and again, I think it was just a me issue. I think I'd read too many fantasy books. I'd got myself in a little bit of a fantasy slump and I just wasn't there. So I am going to try that one again, but for now, DNF. In October, I also DNF'd 2 books, which were Things We Say in the Dark by Kirsty Logan. That one was a horror collection of very short stories, and I just was bored and didn't really get it. And I also DNF'd The Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Hewley. Again, just wasn't really like feeling it, and I also came to the conclusion that I'm not actually a fan of witchy romance books. And in November, I DNF'd Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. I read the first like maybe 50, 70 pages and was like, this is a YA that I'm not on board with. I'm just not there. And then I also DNF'd Witch King by Martha Wells. Again, I read about 75 pages and I was like, I am so confused. And even though my friend who loves this book has said, just battle through the confusion and the payoff is fantastic, it's like, the confusion is really impacting my enjoyment. I can't battle through the confusion anymore. I'm just not liking being this confused this far into a book. You know, when you're a quarter of the way into a book, I was like, I feel like I should at least understand something, anything. But I was like, I don't know what the magic is. I don't even know. Like, they keep on talking about the main character as a demon and as a witch, and that these two things are different, but I don't know what he is or what those things are, or like, I know nothing. So, DNF'd it. Those are the books that I have DNF'd this year. I'm hoping there won't be any more DNFs, but if there are, well, you'll have to watch all of the vlogs and stuff and find out. If you like this video, please do leave me a like, subscribe down below. Let me know down below, do you DNF books? And if so, what books have you DNF'd? Are there any on this list that you also are like, yeah, noping out, that was a good shout? Or are there any that you think that I have made a mistake and I should revisit? Unless it's A Marvellous Light or The Foxglove King, I'm probably not going to revisit any of them, but I'd still love to hear your opinions, just so I can, you know, be aware. If you want to leave me an emoji just to let me know you were here, leave me for the Witch King, leave me like some form of witch or wizard or demon emoji, because again, I have no idea what the book's actually about, but I think it's one of those things, possibly. Maybe not. I don't know. But I will see you in tomorrow's video. Bye.